Captain Vexthara of the Kryn sovereignty stood before the assembled war council with all four arms spread wide, his crimson carapace gleaming under the command deck's harsh lights. The holographic display behind him showed the human colony of New Bristol, 20,000 souls huddled on a frozen moon, defenseless, irrelevant. "They sent one negotiator," he announced, mandibles clicking in what passed for Kryn laughter. "One unarmed female, no escort, no weapons satellites, no fleet backup." He leaned forward, his compound eyes glittering with contempt. "The humans believe words will save them." The council chamber, a cathedral of steel aboard the Dreadnought Fist of Dominion, erupted in approving chittering. 12 species sat in judgment, and all had heard the same tales. Humans were clever scavengers, yes, but physically weak, culturally fractured, and fatally sentimental. They built museums while the galaxy built warships. "Let her board," Vexthara continued, his voice carrying over the noise. "Let her see what real power looks like. Then we take the colony, strip its resources, and sell the survivors to the Combine. The sovereignty does not negotiate with prey." What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman waiting in the docking bay wasn't a negotiator. Her name was Captain Lyra Kaine, formerly of the Earth Defense Force's Ghost Company. She wore a formal diplomatic coat over reactive armor. Her credentials were legitimate. Her smile was warm. And clipped to her belt, hidden beneath the coat, was something the galaxy had forgotten humans still knew how to use. A knife older than starflight, and a rage older than words.
The airlock hissed open, and Lyra Kaine stepped into the belly of the beast. The Fist of Dominion stretched 800 meters from bow to stern, bristling with plasma batteries and kinetic railguns. Its corridors smelled of ozone and something organic she couldn't place. Maybe Kryn pheromones, maybe fear. She walked flanked by 2 guards, insectoid sentries whose eyes tracked her every movement. "Captain Vexthara will see you on the bridge," one guard clicked in broken galactic standard. "Do not touch anything. Do not look at anything too long." Lyra nodded, keeping her face neutral. She'd studied the schematics for weeks, stolen data from a sympathetic Kryn trader who owed humanity a debt. She knew where the bridge was. She knew where the reactor cores pulsed. She knew the Fist had a crew of 300, most of them clustered in the lower decks. And she knew that Kryn warriors, for all their bluster, had never fought a human who'd grown up in the orbital slums of Europa, where you learned to kill with your hands before you learned to read. The airlock hissed open, and Lyra Kaine stepped into the belly of the beast. It was obscene in its opulence, polished obsidian floors, tactical consoles wrapping in a crescent, and at the center, Captain Vexthara on a raised dais. He looked down at her the way a cat looks at a mouse, patient, amused, already tasting victory. "The human envoy," he said, his translator rendering his clicks into smooth, mocking English. "I expected someone taller." Lyra stopped 3 meters from the dais. Around the bridge, a dozen officers watched her. Kryn, a few Salth with their flickering tentacles, one hulking Dravik who looked bored. No one had weapons drawn. Why would they? She was one soft-skinned mammal in a room designed to coordinate planetary bombardments. "Captain Vexthara," Lyra said, her voice steady, "I'm here to discuss the terms of New Bristol's sovereignty." He laughed, a wet, chittering sound. "Sovereignty? You misunderstand. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to inform you. Your colony will surrender within the hour, or we reduce it to ash. Those are the terms." Lyra's jaw tightened, but she kept her hands loose. "And if I refuse? Then you die here and they die there." Vexthara leaned forward, his eyes glittering. "Do you know what I told the War Council before you arrived? I told them no human could ever board a Kryn dreadnought alone and survive, let alone take it." He spread his arms wide. "Look around, envoy. 300 warriors, weapons locked on your colony. You are already dead. You just haven't realized it yet." Lyra smiled. It wasn't a diplomatic smile. It was the smile her drill instructor used to wear before live-fire exercises, the one that said, "You're about to learn something painful." "Captain," she said softly, "I'm not a negotiator." She moved. Her right hand blurred to her belt, ripping the coat open. The knife, 20 centimeters of black ceramic, non-metallic, invisible to every scanner the Kryn possessed, came free in a reverse grip. She crossed the distance to the nearest console officer in 2 steps, faster than the Kryn's compound eyes could track, and buried the blade in the soft joint where his neck met his thorax. He went down without a sound. Chaos erupted. The Salth officer lunged for her with crackling tentacles. Lyra twisted, let momentum carry her under his reach, and slashed upward. Ichor sprayed. She was already moving again, her boots finding purchase on the smooth floor as muscle memory took over. Ghost Company had trained her for ship-to-ship combat in 0G, in toxic atmospheres, in the dark. This was just another day. The Dravik roared and charged. Too slow. She ducked, drove the knife into his knee joint, and used his falling bulk as a shield when plasma fire finally erupted. Bolts seared the air where she'd been standing. She rolled, came up beside a tactical console, and her left hand found the emergency bulkhead override. One press, every door on the bridge slammed shut. Vexthara was screaming orders, but half his crew was bleeding out, and the rest were scrambling for sidearms. Lyra didn't give them time. She vaulted over a console, kicked a Kryn guard's weapon away, and snapped his arm with a precise twist. The crack echoed like a gunshot. "Impossible!" Vexthara hissed, backing towards his command throne. Lyra wiped ichor from her cheek and stalked towards him. "You were right about one thing," she said. "No one boards a warship alone." She reached the dais. Vexthara fumbled for his sidearm. She kicked it away, grabbed him by the throat, and slammed him against his own chair. "But I'm not boarding," she continued, her voice cold. "I'm taking." She dragged him to the primary console, forced his claw on the biometric scanner, and the fist of Dominion's main systems unlocked. Around the bridge, the surviving officers stared in frozen horror. "Weapons offline," Lyra read on the screen. "Engines idling. Distress beacon jammed." She looked at Vexthara. "Do you want to know what humans can do when you threaten their children?" She released him and walked to the ship's central tactical display. The hologram showed New Bristol, still intact, still oblivious. "We fight," she said, "and we don't stop until you remember why Earth survived the collapse." Vexthara lunged. She sidestepped, let him stumble, and drove her knee into his thorax. He crumpled. The bridge was hers. She activated the ship-wide intercom, her voice echoing through every corridor. "Attention, crew of the Fist of Dominion. Your captain just lost his command. Your weapons are offline. Your engines are locked. You have 2 choices. Abandon ship in the next 10 minutes, or stay aboard and see what happens when you piss off a ghost." Silence. Then distant. Alarms, running footsteps, the hiss of escape pods jettisoning. Lyra allowed herself a thin smile. She turned to the command throne, where the Sovereignty's black and crimson battle standard hung on the wall, a symbol of Kryn dominance, of 100 conquered worlds. She ripped it down.
The escape pods scattered like startled fish, tiny silver flashes against the void. Lyra watched them from the bridge's viewport, the stolen battle standard draped over her shoulder like a cape. 300 Kryn warriors, fleeing their own flagship. It would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Behind her, the bridge was a graveyard. She'd zip-tied the survivors, those still conscious, to their consoles, and sealed the blast doors. Vexthara lay crumpled at the base of his throne, mandibles twitching, too stunned to process what had just happened. Lyra sat in his chair, It was too large, built for a species twice her size, but she sank into it anyway and pulled up the ship's communication array. Her fingers danced over Kryn glyphs she'd memorized from stolen manuals. First, she sent a tight beam transmission to New Bristol. Threat neutralized. Evacuate to the southern shelters anyway, more will come. Second, she accessed the Fist's encrypted logs, fleet positions, supply routes, sovereignty chain of command. She copied everything to a microdrive and slipped it into her boot. Third, she opened a galaxy-wide broadcast. Her face appeared on every relay station from Earth to the outer reaches, a human woman, alone, sitting on a Kryn command throne with a stolen battle standard in her lap, blood on her cheek, eyes like winter. "My name is Captain Lyra Kaine," she said. 40 minutes ago, Captain Vexthera of the Kryn Sovereignty told his war council that no human could board his dreadnought alone, let alone take it. She lifted the standard. He was wrong. She let that hang. The Fist of Dominion is now under human control. Its crew has abandoned ship. Its weapons are offline. In this flag, she held it higher. This is going home with me, to remind the Sovereignty and anyone else watching that Earth doesn't negotiate with slavers. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to something colder. New Bristol is off limits. Every human colony is off limits. You want resources? Trade for them. You want to fight? She smiled without warmth. Come find me. I'll be waiting. She cut the feed. The silence in the bridge was absolute. Vexthera groaned, and Lyra glanced at him. "You're probably wondering how," she said. "How one human, soft, weak, prey did this." She stood, walked to him, and crouched so they were eye level. "It's because you've never had to fight for survival. You were born into empire, born into dominance. You've forgotten what it's like to be hunted." She tapped his carapace with the knife. "Humans remember. We spent 10,000 years clawing our way to the top of our own food chain. We didn't forget how to kill. We just got polite about it." She stood. "When you wake up in whatever medical bay your people drag you to, tell them this. The age of easy conquests is over. Humanity isn't prey anymore." Behind her, something beeped. She turned to the tactical display. Incoming ships. 3 Kryn cruisers burning hard toward her position. Lyra cursed under her breath. She'd hoped for more time, but the Kryn weren't stupid. They'd triangulated her broadcast and scrambled reinforcements. She had maybe 20 minutes before they arrived. Not enough time to fly this dreadnought to safety. Too much ship, not enough crew. She pulled up the Fist's self-destruct protocols. Kryn ships had them, fail-safes to prevent capture. 10 minutes to evacuate, then the reactor cores would overload, turning the Fist into a miniature sun. But that felt wasteful. Lyra stared at the control console, an idea forming. She'd studied Kryn engineering. Their ships were modular. Sections could detach in emergencies. The bridge module, for instance, was technically its own small craft, with limited engines and life support. She activated the separation sequence. Alarm shrieked, the floor shuddered. Around her, bulkheads groaned as the bridge detached from the main hull. Through the viewport, she watched the Fist of Dominion's massive body pull away, drifting on momentum. The bridge module's thrusters fired, weak, sputtering, but enough. She angled toward New Bristol, punched the throttle, and felt acceleration press her into the chair. Behind her, the Fist's reactor cores hit critical mass. The explosion was silent in vacuum, but she felt it, a flash of white light that painted the viewport, followed by a debris field that sparkled like snow. 800 meters of Kryn pride reduced to scrap. Lyra exhaled slowly. The incoming cruisers would find nothing but wreckage and a missing battle standard. They'd analyze the debris, they'd recover Vexthera, they'd watch her broadcast 1,000 times trying to understand. And they'd realize that humans, when cornered, were capable of anything. The bridge module limped into New Bristol's orbit 6 hours later. Lyra barely kept it together, thrusters wheezing, life support flickering, her own body screaming from adrenaline crash. She hailed the colony, got clearance to land, and brought the module down in a controlled fall that was more prayer than piloting. When the hatch opened, she stumbled out into freezing air in the stunned silence of 200 colonists. Governor Hayes, a gray-haired woman who'd lived through Earth's last civil war, pushed through the crowd. She looked at Lyra, at the Kryn bridge module smoking behind her, at the black and crimson standard clutched in her hand. Blood on her cheek, eyes like winter. "Holy hell," Hayes breathed. "You actually did it." Lyra nodded, too exhausted for words. Hayes grabbed her shoulder. "Every relay in the sector is replaying your broadcast. You've got the Kryn in an uproar. Half the War Council is demanding your head. The other half is too terrified to speak." She paused. "You just declared war on an empire, Captain." Lyra met her eyes. "No," she said quietly. "They declared war when they threatened our children. I just made sure they know we can fight back." She looked past Hayes at the colonists, families, engineers, farmers who'd chosen the hardest life imaginable, building a future on a frozen rock. They were watching her with something between awe and fear. "Get everyone underground," Lyra said. "More will come, and when they do, we'll be ready." She turned to walk toward the entrance of the shelter, the battle standard trailing behind her like a war cry. One of the colonists, a kid maybe 16, stepped forward. "Captain Kaine." Lyra stopped. "Thank you," the kid said. She managed a tired smile. "Don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning."
Earth's reaction came in waves. First, disbelief. Captain Lyra Kaine's broadcast had been dismissed as propaganda, a deepfake, impossible theater. Then the debris field analysis came back. Verified Kryn materials, reactor signature matching the Fist of Dominion, escape pod telemetry showing a panicked evacuation. The disbelief curdled into shock. Then the shock became something else. Admiral Chen stood in Earth Defense Force headquarters, deep beneath Geneva's rebuilt arcology, watching the broadcast for the 14th time. Around the tactical table, the Joint Command Council sat in stunned silence. "Play it again," Chen said quietly. The hologram flickered. Lyra's face, bloodied and defiant, the stolen standard. Her words, "You want to fight? Come find me. I'll be waiting." When it ended, General Okoye, ground forces, veteran of the Mars insurrection, leaned back and laughed. It was a harsh, disbelieving sound. She boarded a Dreadnought, alone, took the bridge, and flew away with their flag like it was a damn field exercise. "She started a war," Admiral Petrov countered, his Russian accent clipped. "The sovereignty won't let this stand. They'll mobilize their full fleet. New Bristol is—" "A rallying point," Chen interrupted. She stood, planting her palms on the table. "Lyra Kaine just showed the galaxy something we've been too afraid to admit. Humans aren't the underdogs anymore. We've been playing nice, following treaties, avoiding conflict because we thought we had to." She gestured to the hologram. "She proved we don't." Silence. "Madam Admiral," came a voice from the doorway. Commander Marcus Reeves, head of Ghost Company. He was a block of scar tissue and muscle, his cybernetic eye glowing faintly. "Permission to speak freely." Chen nodded. "Kaine was one of mine. Best operative I ever trained. You know what her final evaluation said? Tactically brilliant, strategically reckless, emotionally bulletproof. She's not trying to start a war, she's trying to end one before it begins." He stepped closer. "The sovereignty respects strength. They prey on weakness. For decades, we've been weak, apologizing, retreating, paying tribute." He looked around the table. "One woman just reminded them why humans survived the collapse, why we're still here when species 10 times older than us are dust." Okoye nodded slowly. "So what do we do?" Chen's jaw set. "We back her play." The Sovereignty War Council convened aboard the Eternal Mandate, their capital ship orbiting the Kryn homeworld. The chamber was chaos, chittering voices, pheromone signals clashing, holographic displays showing Lyra's broadcast on endless loop.
High Commander Vrathkiel, the eldest of the council, her carapace scarred from 100 campaigns, slammed a claw on the table. The room fell silent. "Enough," she hissed. "We are the Kryn sovereignty. We have conquered 73 worlds. We do not cower before one human." "She destroyed the Fist," a younger officer protested. "She humiliated Captain Vexthara in front of the galaxy." "Vexthara was a fool. He underestimated prey and paid for it. But this," she gestured to the broadcast, "this is unacceptable. The human took our battle standard. She mocked our strength. If we do not respond with overwhelming force, every species in the sector will see us as vulnerable." She turned to her tactical officer. "How many ships can we mobilize?" 40 dreadnoughts, 600 support craft, enough to glass Earth itself." "No," Vrathkiel's eyes glittered. "Not Earth, not yet. We take New Bristol. We find this Captain Kaine, we broadcast her execution across every relay, and we remind the galaxy that defiance has consequences." The council chittered approval. But in the back of the chamber, an intelligence officer named Sevthik watched the broadcast again. Something about Kaine's eyes bothered him. Not fear, not bravado, certainty. He pulled up the stolen fleet logs from the Fist's database, the ones Lyra had accessed before escaping. Every sovereignty patrol route, every supply depot, every chain of command. She'd copied everything. "Commander," Sevthik said carefully, "the human may have more than just the standard." Vrathkiel turned. "Explain." "She was on the Fist's bridge for 20 minutes before broadcasting, long enough to access secure systems." He hesitated. "If she extracted our strategic data, then she's given Earth a tactical advantage," Vrathkiel finished. Her mandibles clicked slowly. "You're saying this wasn't just a raid. This was intelligence gathering." Sevthik nodded. The room went cold. Vrathkiel stared at the hologram, at Kaine's bloodied face, and for the first time in her long career, she felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. 48 hours after the broadcast, the Sovereignty fleet arrived at New Bristol. 40 dreadnoughts materialized from hyperspace, their plasma batteries charging, their railguns tracking the tiny moon below. It was overkill, obscene, overwhelming force designed to erase a colony and a woman in one brutal stroke. High Commander Vrathkiel stood on the Eternal Mandate's bridge, watching the moon's frozen surface through the viewport. "Scan for human signatures," she ordered. The tactical officer worked his console. Minutes passed. Then, "Commander, there's nothing." "Define nothing." "No life signs, no power signatures. The colony is abandoned." He looked up. "They evacuated." Vrathkiel's claws tightened. Evacuated. Kaine knew they were coming. "Search the system. They can't have gone far." But the scans came back empty. No ships, no trails, just silence. And then, on every screen across the Sovereignty fleet, a new broadcast appeared. Lyra's face. She was standing in what looked like a starship hangar, Earth Defense Force insignia on the walls behind her. The stolen battle standard hung beside her, mounted like a trophy. "High Commander Vrathkiel," Lyra said, "I assume you're watching." Vrathkiel's breath hissed. "You brought 40 dreadnoughts to kill me and scare the galaxy, but I'm not on New Bristol. I evacuated every colonist 3 days ago because I knew you'd come." Lyra's smile was sharp. "You're predictable, arrogant, and now you've just positioned your entire fleet in a system with no strategic value, wasting fuel and time, while Earth prepares." She stepped closer to the camera. "That data I stole from the Fist, Earth has it now. We know where your supply depots are. We know your patrol routes. We know which of your allies are one bad treaty away from turning on you." She paused. "You wanted to make an example of me. Instead, I made you look desperate." Vrathkiel was trembling with rage. "So here's my counteroffer. Withdraw, leave human space, and maybe we don't use what I stole to dismantle your empire piece by piece." The broadcast cut.
Silence filled the Eternal Mandate's bridge. Then, from the tactical console, "Commander, we're detecting hyperspace signatures, multiple contacts jumping in." "How many?" The officer's voice shook. 60 ships, Earth Defense Force." Wrathkeel's world tilted. 60 ships. Not enough to win a direct engagement, but enough to complicate things, enough to make retreat look less like strategy and more like defeat. She stared at the viewport, at the empty moon below. Lyra Kaine had turned the sovereignty's strength into a weakness, their overwhelming force into a political disaster, and now, with Earth's fleet arriving, the entire galaxy was watching. "Signal the fleet," Wrathkeel said quietly. It was the only choice that didn't end in humiliation. But as the dreadnoughts turned away, one thing was clear. This wasn't over.
Earth Defense Force Flagship Resolution, en route to New Bristol. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge, watching the Sovereignty fleet retreat. 60 Earth ships hung in formation behind her, destroyers, frigates, 2 carriers. Enough to make Wrathkeel blink. Not enough to survive if the Kryn had decided to fight. "They're jumping out," her tactical officer reported. "Hyperspace signatures confirmed. The Sovereignty fleet is gone." A cheer erupted across the bridge. Chen didn't join it. "Get me Captain Kaine," she said. The holographic display flickered. Lyra appeared, still in that EDF hangar, the stolen standard behind her. She looked exhausted, shadows under her eyes, but she stood straight. "Admiral," Lyra said. "Captain Kaine," Chen's voice was carefully neutral. "You want to tell me how you evacuated 20,000 colonists without authorization?" Lyra didn't flinch. "I contacted Governor Hayes 3 days ago, told her what I planned. She agreed. We used every transport in the sector, freighters, colony ships, even a few smuggler rigs that owed us favors. Everyone's safe in the Tycho Station network." "You gambled that the Sovereignty would come." "I knew they'd come. Their pride demanded it." Lyra's jaw tightened. "But I also knew Earth wouldn't leave me hanging, that you'd send backup." Chen's expression softened slightly. "You're damn lucky we did. If Wrathkeel had called your bluff, your broadcast would have been your epitaph." "I wasn't bluffing." Silence. "The data I stole, it's everything. Fleet deployments, resource chains, political alliances. It's enough to destabilize the Sovereignty if we use it right." She paused. "But it's also a declaration. Once we start leaking that information, every Kryn ally will know we're playing offense. Some will join them, some will stay neutral, and some will join us." Chen finished. She nodded slowly. "You've started a Cold War, Captain." "I started a fight. The Sovereignty has been taking tribute from human colonies for 20 years, stealing resources, selling prisoners. We've been too afraid to push back because we thought we were outnumbered, outgunned, out everything." Her eyes burned. "But we're not. We're just out-practiced. They've forgotten how to fight something that fights back." Chen studied her. Ghost Company had trained Lyra to be ruthless, efficient, and morally flexible. But this wasn't ruthlessness. This was conviction. "What do you want, Captain?" Lyra didn't hesitate. "I want Earth to stop apologizing. I want us to use that data to break the Sovereignty's alliances. I want every human colony to know we'll defend them, not with words, but with action." She stepped closer to the camera. "And I want that battle standard to hang in the EDF archives, so every cadet who walks past it remembers, we're not prey anymore." Chen smiled, thin, sharp, approving. "Then you'd better get back here. You've got a briefing with Joint Command in 12 hours. The transmission ended. Kryn homeworld, private chamber of High Commander Wrathkeel. She stood alone, staring at a holographic projection of the stolen battle standard, the black and crimson flag that had flown over 100 conquered worlds, now in human hands. A knock. Sevthik entered, mandibles clicking nervously. "Commander, the War Council is demanding a response. They want Kaine's head. They want Earth to pay." "Earth is paying. The question is whether we can afford the cost." She turned. "Run the scenarios. If we mobilize the full fleet, commit every resource to a war with humanity, what happens? Sevthik hesitated. Our models show a Pyrrhic victory. We'd win, but we'd lose half our fleet. Our trade routes would collapse. Our alliances would fracture. And the humans... He paused. The humans fight differently. Guerrilla tactics, suicide runs. They don't surrender. They don't negotiate. They endure. Rothkiel's claws flexed. And if we withdraw? If we cut our losses? We lose face. Some colonies will rebel. Some alliances will question our strength. Sevthik tilted his head. But we survive, and we rebuild. She stared at the standard again. Lyra Kaine had given her an impossible choice: escalate and bleed, or retreat and endure humiliation. Inform the council, Rothkiel said quietly. We will not pursue further action against New Bristol or Captain Kaine. We will reassess our relationship with humanity. It wasn't surrender, it was strategy. But deep down, she knew the truth. One human woman had broken something in the sovereignty's psyche. She'd proven that humans could strike back, that they could win. And once the prey learned to bite, the predator could never be as confident again. Earth, 3 weeks later. The EDF archives were deep underground, temperature-controlled, sacred. Every battle flag, every medal of honor, every artifact of humanity's long struggle for survival was preserved here. And now, hanging beside the Mars Rebellion flag and the Collapse Memorial, was the black and crimson standard of the Kryn sovereignty. Lyra stood before it, alone, her Ghost Company uniform pressed and formal. The archivists had mounted it perfectly, stretched taut, lit from above, a reminder of the day one human said enough. Footsteps echoed behind her. Commander Reeves. Hell of a trophy, he said. Lyra nodded. Feels heavier now than it did when I took it. That's because you understand what it cost. Reeves stood beside her. The sovereignty is regrouping. Rothkiel's playing it smart. No direct confrontation, but they're fortifying their borders. Watching us. Waiting. Good. Let them watch. Let them remember. Reeves studied her profile. You know you're a symbol now, right? The woman who boarded a Dreadnought alone? Every cadet in Ghost Company wants to be you. Lyra smiled, was tired. Then tell them the truth. I was terrified. I got lucky, and if I'd hesitated for 1 second, I'd be dead. But you didn't hesitate. No, I didn't. They stood in silence, staring at the flag. They'll come for you eventually, the sovereignty. Someone in their chain of command will decide that letting you live is too dangerous. Lyra's hand drifted to her hip, where a new knife, earth-forged, carbon black, rested. Let them come. Reeves nodded. That's what I thought you'd say. He left her there, alone with the stolen standard and the weight of what came next.
6 months later. The galaxy had changed. Slowly, quietly, in the way empires fracture when their foundations crack, the Kryn sovereignty began to unravel. It wasn't dramatic, no sudden collapse, no fleets defecting en masse. But the data Lyra had stolen was a cancer, metastasizing through the sovereignty's alliances. Earth leaked it carefully, a supply route here, a treaty violation there. The Vryn Confederacy, longtime Kryn allies, discovered their shipments were being stolen and resold at markup. The Thala enclaves learned the sovereignty had secret plans to annex their mining worlds. The Dravik clans, proud and territorial, realized they'd been manipulated into proxy wars. One by one, the alliances frayed. And humanity, for the first time in galactic history, wasn't the supplicant. They were the power broker. Admiral Chen sat in her office aboard the Resolution, reviewing diplomatic reports. 37 species had opened formal channels with Earth. 12 had requested defense pacts. 5 had asked for human military advisors. The galaxy was learning a new lesson. Humans didn't just survive, they thrive in chaos. Her comm chimed. Admiral, Captain Kaine is here. Send her in. Lyra entered, her uniform crisp, her expression unreadable. 6 months of briefings, interviews, and becoming the most famous human alive had sharpened her edges. She moved like a blade now, precise, unyielding. "You wanted to see me," Lyra said. Chen gestured to a chair. Lyra sat. "How are you holding up?" Lyra's smile was brittle. "Define holding up. I've got a bounty on my head in 14 languages. The sovereignty still wants me dead, and I can't walk through Luna City with someone asking for an autograph." She paused. "But I'm alive." Chen nodded. "Good, because I need you for something bigger." She pulled up a holographic map. It showed the galactic arm, color-coded by allegiance. Red for sovereignty, blue for Earth allies, gray for neutral zones. "The sovereignty is regrouping," Chen said. "Vrathkiel is consolidating power. They've abandoned their weaker colonies, pulled their fleets back to core systems, and started a propaganda campaign painting humanity as aggressors." She zoomed in on a cluster of stars. "But here, the Vena expanse, there's a window." Lyra leaned forward. "What kind of window?" 3 Kryn-controlled mining worlds, minimal defenses, strategic resources, and a population that's ready to revolt. Chen met her eyes. "We've been contacted by the local resistance. They want help. They want you." Lyra's jaw tightened. "You want me to do it again? Board a ship, take a flag, make a statement?" "No." Chen's voice softened. "I want you to lead a team. Ghost Company, covert insertion, train the resistance, give them the tools to free themselves." She paused. "You proved humans can fight back. Now prove we can help others do the same." Lyra sat back, processing. This wasn't about vengeance or symbols. This was about building. "When do we leave?" Chen allowed a rare smile. 48 hours. Commander Reeves is assembling the team. You'll have full autonomy. This is your operation." Lyra stood. "One condition. Name it. When this is over, when the sovereignty finally falls or sues for peace, I want that battle standard moved." She gestured vaguely toward the archives. "Put it somewhere cadets can touch it. Not as a trophy, as a reminder." Chen nodded. "Reminder of what?" "That every empire thinks it's invincible," Lyra said, "until someone climbs aboard and proves them wrong." Kryn Homeworld, High Commander Vrathkiel's war room. The holographic display showed the Vena expanse, 3 worlds glowing red, under sovereignty control, but intelligence reports painted a darker picture. Unrest, sabotage, whispers of human operatives. Sefthik stood before Vrathkiel, mandibles twitching. "We've intercepted coded transmissions. Ghost Company, led by Captain Kaine." He hesitated. "She's in the expanse." Vrathkiel's claws scraped the table. 6 months of restraint, of strategic patience, and now this. Kaine wasn't just a symbol. She was a virus, infecting every system she touched. "Mobilize the 3rd Fleet," Vrathkiel ordered. "I want her captured. Alive." "Alive?" Sefthik echoed. "Alive," Vrathkiel confirmed. "A dead martyr is useless, but a captured one, when we parade before the galaxy, broken and defeated, that sends the message we need." But even as she spoke, doubt gnawed. Kaine had outmaneuvered her before. What if this was another trap? What if humanity was already 10 steps ahead? Vena expanse, mining colony Theta 7. Lyra crouched to her shadows of a rusted ore processor, her team spread across the facility. 12 Ghost Company operatives, all hand-picked, all silent as death. Below them, Kryn guards patrolled the main compound. 30 soldiers, confident in their superiority. They wouldn't be confident for long. Reeves' voice crackled in her earpiece. "Perimeter secured. Resistance fighters are in position. On your mark, Kaine." Lyra scanned the compound. This wasn't about glory. It was about precision. She'd spent 3 weeks training the local resistance, miners, engineers, ordinary people who decided they were done being slaves. Tonight, they take back their world. She pressed her comm. "All units, this is Kaine. Execute." The lights went out. Explosions rocked the perimeter. Not real charges, but flashbangs and smoke designed to orient. The Kryn guards scrambled, shouting orders, and in the chaos, Ghost Company moved. Lyra descended from the processor, knife in hand, moving through smoke like a predator. She reached the first guard before he knew she was there. Disarm, disable, move on. Around her, her team executed the same brutal choreography. The resistance fighters surged from the tunnels, armed with improvised weapons in fury. They outnumbered the Kryn 3-1, and for the first time in their lives, they weren't afraid. Within 20 minutes, the compound was theirs. Lyra stood in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by freed miners, her team regrouping around her. Reeves approached, grinning. "Clean sweep. No casualties on our side. Kryn are zip-tied and ready for processing." Lyra nodded, exhausted but satisfied. "How many colonies left?" 2. She allowed herself a thin smile. "Then let's get to work." 3 months later, the Vena expanse declared independence. 3 worlds free from sovereignty control, united under a new banner. Earth provided support, defensive satellites, trade agreements, military advisors. But the victory belonged to the people who'd fought for it. And across the galaxy, other colonies began to whisper, "If they can do it, why can't we?" The sovereignty hemorrhaged territory. Vrathkiel fought to maintain control, but the damage was done. The empire that had ruled for centuries was fracturing, and humanity, small, soft, supposedly weak, was midwifing the revolution. Lyra returned to Earth a hero, again. This time she didn't fight it. She attended the medal ceremonies, shook hands with dignitaries, posed for holographs, but every night she returned to her quarters and stared at the wall, thinking about the miners of Theta 7, the colonists of New Bristol, the countless lives caught in the machinery of empire. One evening, Admiral Chen visited it. "You've become something the galaxy hasn't seen in a long time," she said, sitting across from her, "a symbol of hope."
Lyra snored. I'm a soldier. I break things. You break chains, she corrected. And that's what the galaxy needs right now. Lyra looked at her. What happens when the sovereignty collapses completely? When there's no empire to push against? Chen's smile was knowing. Then we help build something better.
20 years later. The Earth Defense Force Academy, Luna Campus. A young cadet, barely 18, wide-eyed and nervous, stood before the archive's most famous exhibit. The black and crimson battle standard of the Kryn sovereignty, stolen by Captain Lyra Kaine in what historians now called the boarding. The plaque beneath read, "This standard represents the moment humanity stopped being prey. On a frozen moon called New Bristol, one woman proved that courage, preparation, and refusal to surrender could overcome any empire. It hangs here not as a trophy, but as a promise. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We do not conquer, we liberate." The cadet reached out, fingers hovering over the fabric. "You can touch it," a voice said. She turned. An older woman stood there, gray hair, weathered face, but eyes that still burned with quiet intensity. The cadet's breath caught. Admiral Kaine? Lyra, now head of Ghost Company, retired from active combat, but never from service, nodded. "That's right. I didn't know you visited the archives." "Every year," Lyra said. She stepped beside the cadet, looking up at the standard. "I come to remember what it cost and what it taught me." The cadet hesitated. "What did it teach you?" Lyra smiled. "That fear is just another weapon, and when you're willing to face it, when you're willing to board the ship no one else will, you become something empires can't ignore." She looked at the cadet. "What's your name?" "Cadet Suri Patel, ma'am, Ghost Company applicant." "Good choice." Lyra gestured to the standard. "Then remember this. The hardest part isn't the fight. It's deciding to fight in the first place. Once you make that choice, everything else is just tactics." Suri nodded, eyes bright. Lyra turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and cadet, when you graduate, if you're assigned to Ghost Company, come find me. I'll tell you the parts they don't put in the history books." She walked away, leaving Suri alone with the stolen flag and a future suddenly full of impossible possibilities. Outside, Earth turned beneath a sky filled with allied ships, Vrine, Thela, Dravik, human. The galaxy wasn't perfect, but it was better. And it all started with one woman, one knife, and the refusal to let anyone tell her what humans couldn't do. The Kryn sovereignty still existed, diminished but unbroken. High Commander Vrothkiel, now ancient, still sharp, watched Earth from afar and wondered what might have been if she'd simply listened to Sebthic's warnings. But history doesn't deal in what-ifs. It deals in what was. And what was this. Humanity learned to fight back, not with overwhelming force, not with cruelty, but with precision, courage, and the unshakable belief that no one had the right to make them kneel. The battle standard hung in the archives, and across the galaxy, in 1,000 colonies and shipyards and academies, humans looked up at the stars and remembered, we're just getting started.